There comes a moment in life not once, but many times when the quiet echo of our thoughts grows louder than the noise of the world around us. You sit in the middle of a day that looks like the last one, and the one before that. You look around, and nothing feels wrong, but everything feels off. Something is missing, and more often than not, that something is control over your mind, your time, your goals, your identity. Bob Proctor once said, "You're the only problem you will ever have, and you're the only solution." It sounds harsh, but it's also the most liberating truth you can embrace. The moment you realize the reins were always in your hands, you stop blaming circumstances and start creating direction. If you're waiting for a sign to shift the course of your life, consider this. These are 8 proven strategies to regain control of your life, not tomorrow, not someday, but today. We'll start with the first 2. 1. Audit your inner dialogue and rewrite the script. Your mind is a constant narrator. It talks to you more than anyone else ever will. But have you really listened to what it's saying? If your inner dialogue were projected onto a screen, would you be inspired or ashamed? Are you speaking possibility into your days, or feeding quiet doses of fear, doubt, and limitation? The words you say to yourself shape the actions you take. If you tell yourself, "I'm not good at that," your brain looks for proof. If you say, "I always mess this up," your habits will follow suit. This is more than positive thinking, it's about ownership of your subconscious programming. Bob Proctor emphasized, "The subconscious mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant there, it will return." That means whether you're feeding it weeds or planting seeds of growth, it doesn't argue, it accepts and creates. So how do you change the narrative? Start with awareness. Set an alarm 3 to 4 times a day just to pause and ask, what am I telling myself right now? Challenge self-limiting thoughts as if they were coming from someone else. Would you let a friend speak to you like that? If not, why allow it in your mind? Replace instead of resist. Don't just say, "Stop thinking negatively, create a new line." Change, "I can't do this too, I'm learning how to handle this." Words are not just sounds. They are permissions you give yourself or chains you tie around your future. Want to take control of your life? Rewrite the story playing in your head. But don't stop there. Control requires structure. That brings us to the second strategy to define your personal operating system, your non-negotiables. Most people don't lack discipline, they lack clarity. They drift, not because they're lazy, but because they have no internal compass to steer their behavior. Think about it. If your life were a business, what would its core values be? What are your non-negotiables? We all have default patterns. Wake up, work, eat, scroll, repeat. But when you pause long enough to ask what you truly value, peace, excellence, integrity, growth, you begin to realize how far your actions may be from your priorities. Bob Proctor taught discipline is giving yourself a command and following it. But you can't give yourself a command if you don't know what you stand for. So what does it look like to define your personal operating system? Right? Don't the 5 values you want to live by. Not the ones you think sound good, but the ones that make your chest expand when you read them. From each value, define 1 non-negotiable behavior. For example, if growth is your value, your behavior might be, I read 10 pages of a mindset book every morning before checking my phone. Place these behaviors in your environment. Sticky notes, phone reminders, wall art doesn't matter. Visibility, fuels, consistency. Here's the twist. Your non-negotiables aren't about perfection. They're about identity reinforcement. Every time you act in alignment with your values, you send a signal to your brain. This is who I am. Think about the power in that. Instead of trying to fix your life, you're building a personal code of conduct one that's authentic, intentional, and yours. That is how self-control transforms into self-respect. So what's stopping most people? Comfort, familiarity, and most dangerously you can't drive your life on autopilot and expect to end up at a destination you chose. You need to get back in the driver's seat. But be warned, control is not about controlling everything. It's about choosing what matters most and committing to it even when no one's watching. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you actually wrote down what your inner voice has been repeating for weeks? Do your daily habits reflect the version of you you're trying to become, or the one you're trying to leave behind? If your life keeps repeating itself, is it possible you're not living, but reacting? These aren't easy questions, but they are essential because the person who asks them and answers them honestly is the person who begins to change. And remember, you were born rich. Bob Proctor reminded us, not in money, but in potential. That potential is dormant, not dead, and it will remain dormant until you awaken it by deliberate thought and intentional action. The strategies shared here aren't tricks. They're transformations. And when applied, not just read, but practice. They don't just improve your life, they reclaim it. There's a quiet war happening inside every person, a battle between the life they're living and the life they want to live. And often, the gap between the two isn't talent, resources, or time its ownership. Not just of actions, but of results, emotions, mindset, and truth. The shift from existing to living deliberately doesn't start with a big break or a breakthrough. It starts with a decision, and that decision is made stronger each time you practice the disciplines that support it. Let's explore the third and fourth strategies to help you take real control of your life today, not through control of circumstances, but through mastery of self. 3. Stop negotiating with distractions you know the moment. You sit down with a goal in mind, maybe it's writing, working, thinking, healing, and then your phone lights up. A message, a notification, an urge, a whisper that says, just check it for a second. And the second becomes minutes, minutes become hours, and soon the day has drifted away from you. Distraction isn't just a habit. It's a silent form of self-sabotage defense mechanism your brain uses to avoid discomfort, responsibility, or fear of inadequacy. Bob Proctor once said, "The only limits in our life are those we impose on ourselves. And one of the most dangerous limits we self-impose is tolerating endless mental clutter in the name of relaxing or staying connected." Taking control of your life requires a confrontation with distractions, not by resisting them with willpower alone, but by redesigning your environment and rewriting the rules. Start here. Eliminate negotiation. Don't decide whether you'll check your phone during deep work or decide. Turn it off. Leave it in another room. Create friction. Time block your distractions. It sounds strange, but scheduling time for entertainment or rest intentionally gives you control over it. It's no longer stealing your focus, he's part of the plan. Ask what it's costing you. Every time you indulge a distraction, ask, what am I trading for this? Because time is not just passing, it's being spent on something or someone. Here's what's even deeper. Distractions don't just steal your productivity, steal your presence. And presence is where power lives. If you cannot focus for more than 10 minutes without reaching for escape, how can you ever build anything that matters? Train your mind to stay even when it's uncomfortable. Because clarity, creativity, and control live on the other side of sustained attention. And once your focus is reclaimed, there's something just as vital. You must protect your emotional state. Take radical responsibility for your emotions. We're not taught this in school. Most people live their entire lives thinking emotions happen to them, that someone else can make you angry, or ruin your day, or put you in a bad mood. But the truth is, more uncomfortable, more liberating, thoughts become things, Bob Proctor said. But thoughts also become feelings. And those feelings become your frequency, the emotional energy you send into the world and use to navigate your choices. Here's the question. Are your emotions leading you, or are you leading them? Taking control of your life means taking responsibility for your internal state, no matter what happens externally. And this doesn't mean suppressing how you feel. It means recognizing that how you respond is always your choice. Here's how to start reclaiming that power. Pause before reacting. Create a space just 5 seconds between stimulus and response. In that space, ask, what's really happening here? Name the emotion. Don't just say, I feel bad. Get specific. Are you disappointed, frustrated, lonely, unseen? The more precise you are, the more power you have over it. Question the source. Ask, is this feeling coming from the present moment or from a past wound I haven't healed yet? The truth is, most emotional overreactions are echoes of old stories. A comment from a friend triggers a memory of not being good enough. A missed opportunity stirs childhood shame. Unless you trace those roots, you'll keep mistaking your triggers for your truth. This is the inner work most people avoid, but it's the work that leads to real freedom. Bob Proctor's work on the paradigm shift reminds us, you're programmed to react a certain way, but that program can be changed, and emotional responsibility is the cornerstone of that reprogramming. It's tempting to let yourself off the hook, to say, I had a bad day, or they disrespected me, but when you give away ownership of your emotions, you give away your power to change them. This doesn't make you a robot. It makes you awake, aware, in control not of life, but of how you meet it. And that's where true transformation begins. Here's what I want you to reflect on today. What distraction are you tolerating because it's easier than facing your discomfort? Where in your life are you outsourcing your emotions, blaming others for what you feel? What would your day look like if you started treating your attention and emotions as sacred? These questions aren't for quick answers. They're meant to linger, to stretch you, because the moment you stop blaming circumstances is the moment your power returns to you. Taking control of your life isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before fear, distraction, and excuses clouded your vision. You have the ability to focus deeply, to feel fully without drowning in the waves, to choose thoughts that create strength instead of stories that cage you. And every time you do the Avon you become someone who is no longer waiting to be saved. You become someone who has decided to lead. There's a quiet truth about personal growth that most people never want to admit. Change is not convenient. It demands discomfort. It requires excavation of patterns, beliefs, lies you've told yourself, and truths you've buried so deep that you forgot they were ever yours. Taking control of your life isn't about doing more. It's about being more conscious, more deliberate, more honest, more present. Because the longer you live passively, the more you become a stranger to your own potential. Let's keep walking forward. Strategy 5 is one many overlook, but it might just be the key to every locked door in your life. 5. Redefine success on your own terms. Whose life are you chasing? Take a moment and answer that. Honestly, the metrics you use to measure your worth, your job title, your income, your relationship status, your social media following, did you choose them or did you inherit them? Bob Proctor warned us about this trap when he said, most people are not going after what they want. They're going after what they think they can have. But he could have added ... or what they were told they should want. There is no freedom in living out someone else's dream, and there's no peace in succeeding by a standard you don't even believe in. Redefining success is not about lowering your ambition. It's about aligning your pursuit with your truth. So ask yourself, what does success feel like to me? Peace, fulfillment, impact, mastery, love, freedom. If I were the only person on earth, would I still be doing what I'm doing? What am I chasing that I don't actually care about? Too often, we define success through comparison, not clarity. And comparison is a thief of joy, of direction, of identity. Want to take control of your life? Stop performing. Start aligning. Here's a practical way to begin. Write a success manifesto, a one-page personal declaration that outlines what success looks like and feels like for you in this season of life. Include emotional benchmarks, not just external ones. Audit your current life against that manifesto. Where are you aligned? Where are you betraying yourself? Adjust your goals accordingly. It's okay to pivot. It's courageous to release goals that no longer serve your soul. When you redefine success, you reclaim ownership. You stop running someone else's race. You stop confusing busy with productive. And most importantly, you stop living for applause and start living with purpose. Now, what holds most people back from making that shift? Fear of judgment, fear of letting others down, and most of all, a fear of failing without an audience to justify the effort. That's where strategy 6 becomes critical. 6. Commit to self-trust, not just self-improvement. We live in a time obsessed with personal development. Read the books, watch the videos, take the courses, get the planner, track the habits, upgrade. But here's a radical idea. You don't need more self-improvement. You need more self-trust. Means you believe in your ability to figure things out even when you don't have all the answers yet. It means you value your own inner wisdom over external validation. It means you trust your own decisions even when they defy logic or expectation. Bob Proctor didn't just teach people to grow, he taught them to believe in their own creative power. If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. That kind of belief doesn't come from reading it. It comes from deciding to trust yourself before the evidence arrives. Here's why this matters. You will never feel in control of your life if you are constantly outsourcing your power. You will always feel anxious if you are waiting for a guarantee before you act. You will keep repeating cycles of doubt, burnout, and stagnation if you don't learn to listen to your own inner compass. Self-trust isn't built overnight. It's built through repeated moments of courage, of showing up, of making a promise to yourself and keeping it. Try this. Make micro. Choose one small thing each day that you commit to fully. It could be waking up at a certain time, writing for 10 minutes, or going for a walk. Keep that promise no matter what. Stop second guessing every decision. Choose, act, learn, adjust. You'll gain more clarity in action than in over. Notice when you're seeking permission. Whenever you find yourself wanting someone else's approval before you take a step, pause. Ask, why don't I trust myself with this? Every time you trust yourself, even in the smallest way, you chip away at the internal doubt that's been holding you hostage. And here's a truth most won't tell you. Self-trust feels lonely at first because you stop blending in. You stop seeking consensus. You start saying no when it's unpopular. But that's the cost of sovereignty. And it's worth everything. So ask yourself now, what definition of success am I holding on to that no longer aligns with my spirit? Where in my life am I overdeveloped in information, but underdeveloped in trust? What would shift if I acted from self-belief instead of self-doubt? These questions crack open doors. Behind each of them is a new level of power, peace, and personal freedom. Remember, there is no right way to live, but there is a right way for you. And that way is found not by collecting more steps, but by clearing more noise. The only thing that controls you is what you think, Bob Proctor told us. And when you learn to think for yourself, not from fear, but from intention, you start creating instead of reacting. You take your life off autopilot. You stop waiting. You stop explaining. You stop seeking proof that you're allowed to choose differently. And in that moment, the world shits not because it changed, but because you did. There's something sacred about momentum. It builds quietly, often invisibly. A single decision becomes a habit. A habit becomes a pattern. A pattern becomes identity. And before you know it, the future starts to shape itself not by accident, but by design. That's what you've been doing, whether you realized it or not. By asking better questions, by reflecting, by choosing, by awakening, you've been reclaiming the steering wheel of your life. But there are two final strategies, powerful, often overlooked, that act as the bridge between intention and integration. Because control isn't about gripping your life tightly. It's about living with such clarity and conviction that you no longer need to chase stability. It starts to rise from within. Let's finish strong. 7. Build a morning routine that reprograms your mind. Most people wake up and immediately hand their attention to the world. Emails, notifications, news, noise, before they've even taken their first conscious breath. They've already fallen into reaction mode, letting the external world decide how they feel, what they fear, what they believe, and who they're allowed to be. Bob Proctor's entire philosophy rested on one unshakable truth. You become what you think about. So ask yourself, what are you thinking about first thing in the morning? And more importantly, who chose those thoughts? To take control of your life, start by reclaiming the first 30 minutes of your day. This is not just about productivity. It's about programming. Here's a simple but powerful structure. Silence. Before anything else, sit in stillness. Even for 5 minutes. Let your mind settle. Create space for clarity to enter. Gratitude. Write down 3 things you're deeply grateful for. Not generic, blessing-specific moments, memories, or insights that stir emotion. Visioning. Close your eyes and visualize the version of you that has already taken control of their life. How do they speak, move, decide, lead, see it, feel it? Mental repetition? Choose one affirmation or empowering belief and repeat it aloud with conviction. Something like, I am the architect of my life. I design it with intention. Bob often said, discipline is the ability to give yourself a command and follow it. Your morning routine is that command. It's your daily act of your quiet rebellion against mediocrity. If you can't control how your day starts, how can you expect to control where it leads? Your morning is your soil. Your thoughts are the seeds. And what you grow will either liberate or limit you. Oito. Surround yourself with energy that demands growth. You cannot create a new life in the same energy that built your old one. No matter how focused, disciplined, or intentional you become, your environment will either reinforce your growth or sabotage it silently. And I'm not just talking about your physical space, though that matters too. I'm talking about your emotional and energetic ecosystem. Who are you around? What do they normalize? Do they encourage your expansion or remind you to play small? Bob Proctor understood this deeply. He said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, not just physically, but mentally. That includes what you read, watch, listen to, and interact with. Want to elevate your life? Elevate the frequency of your. Here's how. Curate your circle. Spend more time with people who challenge your thinking, inspire your vision, and hold you to your higher self, not your past self. Limit energetic drains. That might mean less time with people who gossip, complain, or live in perpetual crisis. You're not better than them, but you are choosing differently. Immerse in greatness. Read books that stretch you. Watch content that energizes you. Listen to voices that speak life into your spirit, not fear into your mind. The energy you absorb is the energy you create with. And if you're constantly surrounded by scarcity, doubt, and emotional noise, your life will reflect it, no matter how hard you work. This is not about isolation, it's about elevation. Because you can't rise while clinging to environments that reward your stagnation. So here's what we've explored. You rewrote your inner narrative. You defined your personal values. You stopped negotiating with distraction. You took radical emotional ownership. You redefined what success means for you. You committed to trusting yourself. You reprogrammed your mornings. You curated an energy that pulls you forward. Now, ask yourself, what will you do today, not tomorrow? Not after the next podcast or the next piece of motivation. Not when you feel ready. Today, because the life you want isn't waiting at the end of the year. It's waiting at the next decision. And every time you choose presence over reaction, clarity over noise, truth over approval, you take the pen back, you write a new line in the story of your life. If you found value in these strategies, if something shifted inside you, even slightly, then keep feeding that momentum. This isn't a one-time inspiration. It's a lifestyle of consciousness and personal power. So here's your next step. Subscribe to the Bob Proctor Wisdom channel, not just for content, but for community, for reminders, for reinforcement. Let your environment lift you, challenge you, and remind you every day that you are not here to survive. You're here to create. Let Bob's voice stay close. Let his teachings echo in your morning silence, in your decisions, in your setbacks, and in your vision. Because once you remember how powerful you are, you will never hand your life over again.